My old buddy D Lemonade, Don Lemon in the flesh. We got him here on Mea Culpa. It finally is happening after all these years. Anxious to have you. Hour goes by quickly. Let's rock because, as you know, there's so much to talk about. The chaos doesn't stop. So, Don, the first question I want to ask you is that the United States recently voted nay from voting on a UN resolution condemning Russia's war in Ukraine. Now, to be honest with you, this should be an easy one, right? I mean, with Trump's suspected ties to Russia and his America First foreign policy, do you think that his approach to Russia is part of a larger strategy? Or do you think it's just a dangerous example of prioritizing personal interest over global stability?
Well, I think the latter is probably more accurate, and no one would know that better than you. So, but I do think that I do find it odd that he has trouble criticizing Vladimir Putin, that he won't call him a dictator and that he'll call Zelensky a dictator. And so I'm a little bit surprised by that, but I don't know why we are here. It seems like, condemning Russia for its unjust invasion of Ukraine would be a no-brainer, right?
It's
but
easy,
somehow,
right?
Yeah, but somehow we're in an upside down, backwards world, and I'm just wondering, does Putin have something on the man, or
No,
I don't know what it is.
no. He doesn't have anything on him. All of that bullshit about Trump and P tapes or, other sort of compromise.
I don't believe the P tape.
It does not exist. This, I believe, is just Donald Trump wanting the same type of unlimited authority, unlimited power, unlimited wealth that Vladimir Putin has. Everybody talks about, for example, Elon Musk being the richest man in the world. That's only because his wealth is known. What about people like Vladimir Putin, where 25% of every single company in Russia, of every oil tanker that comes out, 25% of that goes to him individually. So yeah, Elon Musk on paper may be the richest guy in the world, but I don't think even Elon Musk's money compares or comes close to the money that Putin has. And that, I believe, is what drives Trump.
Yeah, and the political power that drives Trump too. The political power and the control that Vladimir Putin has over his people. I mean, Vladimir Putin can do whatever he wants, right, in that country, and no one can stop him. And I think you're right. I think Donald Trump wants that same power. And the sad thing is that I think we're teetering on the edge now. I think we're getting close to granting him that power. He's already, deemed himself a king. And the interesting thing about that, Michael, is I find that when I talk to folks, even, folks who like Donald Trump, they don't like that he's calling himself a king, but they kind of forgive almost everything that he does. So I don't know if that's going to have any effect on him. But you're right. I think he wants unlimited power. He is enamored with dictators and strongmen because he wants the same thing. But he has to realize that America has a constitution and we're a republic. We're about democracy and not about dictatorship.
Except in all fairness, Russia has a constitution also, except that constitution doesn't really mean anything because that's what Vladimir Putin said. Remember, they were also only allowed as president to have 2 terms. After that second term, and people started to complain, say, whoa, you can't just change it. Well, okay. So he made himself prime minister, which, for lack of a better term, trumps the presidency. And then after the 4 years, after Medvedev, who he appointed as president, dropped out, what ends up happening? Well, he then became president again. But this time, it's for as long as the people of Russia choose to have him as their president, which, of course, based upon something I've even said going back years ago to you and on your show and all that, it doesn't matter who you vote for. All that matters is who's counting the vote. And that's what I also believe that Trump is looking for.
Well, I think you're right about that. I think he's putting people into positions that I'm concerned that we will even have another legitimate election in this country, because he can just say, these votes are fraudulent. They're fraudulent here. We're not accepting that. And he has the right people in place to be able to handle that now. And he's got the Supreme Court. He's got the Justice Department. And look, I think people are afraid to go up against him. So I'm concerned about having a legitimate election. I think you're right about that. But I don't know what we do except midterm try to vote some. Am I afraid? No, I'm not I'm concerned. If to borrow a phrase from Susan Collins, I'm extremely concerned, but I'm not afraid. And maybe that's just in my personal constitution, and how I grew up, and considering my lineage in this country as people who are came over as peasants and helped to build a country. So I'm not afraid. I do hope, and I believe in America, and I believe in the Constitution. I think that will win out in the end, but it's going to be a tough battle. But I am very concerned. And some people are afraid, and I do understand that. But I'm not afraid.
Yeah, understood. And I'm glad for that. Meanwhile, the United States has obviously long prided itself on being a global leader in human rights, in democratic values. But with Trump's refusal to condemn Russia's actions in Ukraine and his undermining of domestic agencies, do you think that America's moral authority on the world stage is slipping? Or again, you think this is part of some broader shift in foreign policy priorities?
I don't think it's shifting. I think it has shifted. I think that folks look at us and they feel bad for us. I am ashamed of how this administration and how our president and this administration, how they're acting. And, him getting rid of USAID and freezing the funding, that did a lot of good for a lot of people around the world. And if you are about America first, then you should also be about helping other people, because we're all connected. And when you have, when you are trying to stamp out HIV, or at least lower the rates of HIV in Africa or in any other nation, as a matter of fact, is helpful to America, because that also stops it from coming here. And part of us, we are the largest democracy and the richest country on earth. And we can find ways, we're supposed to find ways to be able to help other people. And so I think that our position on the world stage has diminished, in large part because of Donald Trump and because of the people he has in place. If you look at, I just did a thing on JD Vance and Jack, Posobiec, going over and handling foreign policy being in places where they shouldn't be, going to places where there are dictatorships and strong men, rather than having a summit in Geneva or someplace that is neutral. And that is very concerning when you have trolls, internet trolls, that are traveling with the vice president and is ostensibly helping them to work on foreign policy. That's embarrassing. That is concerning. And that is something actually that people should be afraid of.
It's funny. Let me break down Trump to you in this world stage. He doesn't give a shit. All right. For Donald Trump, and again, many people agree with this America First ideology. We are denying our American brothers and sisters all sorts of things. Better food, more food. We're basically becoming, as far as our infrastructure, antiquated and so on. So his feeling is, I'm going to bring in and create, I don't know if it's an agency, a program, a department, this DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. And we're going to cut the living shit out of all this, including USAID. Why should I care? This is Trump's personality. This is his ideology. Why should I care if in Africa they have AIDS? Why should I care? We're not going to let them in the country. And by the way, if God forbid that somebody does contract it, thank God now that there are medications that basically quell the disease. It's not like it was going back in the 80s, which basically became a death sentence. Not anymore. Well, his feeling is, I don't want our hardworking tax dollars going to anyone other than the country and me. And when I say me, the scraps off Longshank's table will fall to my billionaire friends. But
Yeah.
he wants the money to stay in this country to benefit America and himself. And that, I agree with you, is problematic because I've said a million times and I'm going to say it again, and the adage becomes old and tiring, but it's necessary. When you have a strong America, you have a strong world. When you have a weak America, you have a weak world. And while AIDS and disease in other countries is problematic to America, it could come here like what we saw with COVID, like what we're seeing with other sorts of diseases and infections. He doesn't care. Not once, not one bit. And I think on top of that, when we talk about a weak world, we need to be concerned about countries like Russia, like Pakistan, like Iran, all who are nuclear equipped, because it only takes one to fuck up the whole world, the whole planet.
Right. Absolutely true. But look, I think that is a myopic and a short-sighted view to think that if we want to be isolationists, that doesn't help us. Being isolationist doesn't help us. I mean, I think Russia is very isolationist and look isolated, and look, what's going on there. They've got the dictator. They're in a war. It used to be that people were shunning them, and now I don't know what's going on in the world. The United States is, trying to embrace him, which is interesting to me. But if they want to cut money rather than not helping the folks in countries, underdeveloped nations who need it, and even people here in the United States, rather than doing that, why don't they get rid of some of the corporate tax cuts? Why don't they get rid of some of the kickbacks? Why don't they cut the budget in other places? The military budget is enormous. There are billions of dollars in corporate tax cuts. What about changing the tax rate for billionaires? There are things that they can do that he won't do because it's going to hurt his rich buddies. I don't see him cutting taxes of his rich friends. I don't see him taking anything from the people his donors. I only see them, meaning DOGE and Donald Trump, taking jobs from average everyday people, possibly taking Medicare and Medicaid from folks who get $65. Is it a day, maybe, or not? Maybe not even that much. And you have the head of DOGE who makes reportedly $8 million on one contract per day, and so it's just And I think the controlling of the media doesn't focus on that, and they should be focused on that more, but they're distracted by all of the bullshit that's being pushed out there. And
let's talk about the bullshit. Take, for example, USAID. Imagine what an incredible, and I say it all the time, Trump is hands down the greatest manipulator of facts, the greatest branding guy maybe ever born on this planet. The guy turns around, they come up with a lie, which was $50 million, which, by the way, compared to our $6 trillion budget, that's like an hour's worth of interest. But $50 million worth of condoms is being sent to Gaza. First of all, as we all know, that number is inaccurate. It went from 50 to 100, back down to 50.
75 and went to 10. Yeah.
Right. That would equate, by the way, to 1 billion condoms that they said was being shipped to Gaza. Now, first and foremost, it wasn't Gaza, meaning the Gaza Strip. It was Gaza province in Mozambique. That money and condoms were going to. It kind of reminds me of when he said he wanted to congratulate Kansas on the Kansas City Chiefs, right? I mean, it's just a gaffe. It's a mistake. Okay, it happens to all of us, but, it shouldn't happen to the president when you had so many people reviewing the work and the information that he's putting out. My point here, though, is that's 1 billion condoms that they're talking about because the U.S. government pays 5 cents per condom. It's amazing. That number is wrong, but he is able with that lie to convince an entire swath of the American populace. The fuck? I don't want to send condoms to Gaza. They're making condom bombs out of these condoms. Now, I don't even want to get into the disgusting thought that came through my mind when I first heard that one, but somehow in Donald Trump and his acolytes' world, this is like a Willy Wonka scenario where condoms can fly. And when they explode with whatever the hell that they put inside of these condoms, nails, explosives, whatever. The whole thing is such nonsense and bullshit that it's comical, but people are buying this nonsense day in and day out. When there's a much easier story for him to tell, one that wouldn't resonate so ugly on America.
Well, yes, there's a much easier story to tell, and that would be the truth. But by the way, condoms to Gaza, it went from 50 million, I think, to 75 to 100 million. Then it became condoms to Hamas. Remember that.
Right.
And then it turns out to be a province in Mozambique, Gaza province in Mozambique. And I think it became like $10 million rather than the amount of money that he's talking about. And that was to stamp out and to try to curb the spread of HIV and AIDS and other sexually transmitted diseases in other parts of the world, as I mentioned, and to keep it, and that helps to stop it from coming here as well. So yeah, there's a much easier and better story to tell, and that would be the truth. But the truth doesn't empower him in a way that he likes to be empowered, and the truth doesn't tell the real story about him and what is happening with our country and what's happening with DOGE is that the savings or what they're finding, it's not as much as people think. And there are better ways to save money. Instead of robbing from the rich, robbing from the poor, how about the helping the poor people? How about the rich people actually helping the poor people in this country? The rich corporations, the rich people, the folks the haves. How about helping the have-nots? I don't see any of that coming from anywhere in this administration, and that should wake people up. But I don't think it's just him being a master marketer and promoter. I think it's also the American people, because in a way we are lazy and we don't like to do our homework, and we are not media literate, and we don't know civics, and so because of those things, it keeps us ignorant to certain things. And so we will just buy anything that folks see on Fox News or that Donald Trump says, even whether it's true or not. And what he does is that he gets people all riled up, and he likes to divide us, to keep the American people divided and angry and fearful. And that way it keeps him in power, in control, and it also puts money in his pocket.
You know, if you want to start just playing with numbers, because I'm a numbers guy, and I like to just always explore numbers. At $50 million, when they were talking about, condoms to Hamas, right, to Gaza, if you calculate it out based upon 1 billion condoms and so on, it basically amounts to 70,000 condoms per male Hamas, right?
That's a lot of
male.
You know what?
It's sure. You're basically talking about having 191, almost 192 sexual acts per day in a year. Now, that's a lot of fucking going on, right? I mean, who has time
you said
to
it.
fight?
I didn't want to say it.
I sure will. But who has time to fight? By the way, wouldn't you be tired and thirsty? I mean, 191 times, right, a day for 1 year straight. Let's even say that's a 10-year deal. You're still talking about 19 times a day, for God's sakes. I'll tell you something. If that's true and they're actually that sexually active, I want to be a part of it.
you want to move to that Gaza?
Damn fucking straight, I sure do. 19 times a day over a 10-year period, 191 times a day if you want to really push the envelope. But the reason that we make fun of it is because it's so fundamentally stupid that for whatever the reason is, you could still end up engaging in a massive debate with a MAGA supporter.
Oh my gosh.
I don't give a fuck what Don Lemon says. I don't care what Michael Cohen says. I don't care what any of you libs turn around and say. We own you, And we're not spending $50 million a year on condoms going to Gaza. That's just their point. As my grandma used to always say, you can't debate stupid because the misinformation is just extreme.
Or what my mom would say, are you stuck on stupid? I don't know if you've heard that phrase before. Yeah, well, I think they like it, though. I think they like it. They like it because they want someone to speak for them, and they have been groomed to live in fear and anger. I think the media has groomed them. I think Donald Trump has capitalized on that, and now he is doing the same thing. Look, the immigrants are taking your jobs. It's the black people are taking your jobs. Someone is, moving into your neighborhood. They're taking all of these things. They're taking this, they're taking that away from you. And so people are fearful, and they just sit there all day and they watch. They just are spoon-fed rhetoric, lies, far-right dogma, and they don't understand that they are being co-opted and they're being used as tools of the people who are taking advantage of them. Yeah, and so I think that we need media literacy somehow in this country. We need to make people smarter about the media, and I don't think the media actually does a good job of doing that.
Me neither. Well, let's just talk about for a second the defunding of these key agencies. I mean, Trump's administration has pushed to literally dismantle key agencies like what you were saying, USAID, FEMA, the Department of Education, etc., arguing that these agencies foster corruption and inefficiency. This is, again, the master brander in Trump. Fraud, waste, abuse. We all know it. In fact, the biggest fraudster, the biggest waster, the biggest abuser happens to be the agency with the largest pocketbook, and that's the Department of Defense. How many times have you heard over your illustrious career things like the $10,000 screwdriver or the $25,000 toilet seat, right? Yep. I mean, you want to talk about fraud, waste, and abuse?
You heard me say cut the Defense Department's budget. I mean, if they want to do that, if they want to actually, save billions of dollars, I agree with you.
When your car breaks down, you take it to a mechanic with no hesitation. You need it, and it's not something most guys can fix themselves. I know I can't. And men should think the exact same way about ED. But the reality is, you might be hesitant to seek help. Thankfully, through HIMSS, you can get access to personalized ED treatment without stepping outside the door. HIMSS is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your own couch. HIMSS provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. You hear that? 95% cheaper. And the process, it's 100% online, so that there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option for you. And if prescribed, your medication ships directly to you for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. And with hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, HIMSS can help you find the ED option that works best for you. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/Cohen. That's HIMS.com/Cohen for your personalized ED treatment options. Again, that's HIMS.com/Cohen. And the product mentioned are chewable compound products which are not approved by or verified by safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. But the question I want to ask you here is, without clear plans for replacement of these agencies, do you think that this is undermining America's ability to influence global affairs, particularly in what you were talking about, the humanitarian and the diplomatic efforts?
Of course it does for global affairs, but also, look, Everyone keeps talking about America first, whatever. We got to get our own house in order. When you are doing the people who are cutting jobs and who are looking at, inefficiencies in our government and in bureaucracy, they should at least have an idea about how government works, how bureaucracy works, that there are actually institutions in our government that do work, that actually help people, that saves lives. And can they be more efficient? Absolutely, 100%. But I don't believe that you do that by going in and stripping them of what makes them valuable to the American people and stripping institutional knowledge from those organizations and institutions just to save $1. I have a good friend who is one of the smartest people I know. And he's taught me this about value versus cost. And sometimes when you want things to operate properly, when you want something good, when people say you got to spend money to make money, right? You have to spend money on something if you want it to operate properly. So he always says, many people who are in business, they know the cost of everything and the value of nothing. And I believe it's the same thing in our government right now. They know how much everything costs. They keep telling us how much this costs, how much that costs, but they don't talk about the value of some of those programs that are costing money. And in order to have those agencies and those programs work properly, save lives, help America, help other parts of the world, you have to spend money. There's a value in that does not show up on a
balance sheet.
On a balance sheet. It doesn't show up on that. And so that's what they're ignorant of that. And so the people who are, in these positions to be able to change people's lives and cut out certain organizations and fire people and all of that, they should consider the value of some of those things and just not the cost, because the people who actually support Donald Trump and who voted for him are going to be affected by it the most when they have to start, when the Department of Education goes away and they can't get Head Start for their kids, or they have to start paying for the education when usually they go to public schools, or when veteran services are being cut out, or they don't have certain infrastructure that they need in places. They don't realize that the blue states actually fund the red states because they don't have a big enough tax base where they are to be able to afford even much of their very own infrastructure. And so I think that's why, but he likes the poorly educated because he can keep them in the dark and they don't understand these issues.
I couldn't say it any better. You have some states that are net positive. They give more to the government than they receive. And then you have these red states that are net negative, that they take a whole lot more than what they send to the IRS. So since we're talking about plans, let's talk about the migrant deportation plan coming out of this administration. Trump's proposed migrant deportation plan, which literally involves sending migrants to internment camps, whether it be in Guantanamo Bay or now in Panama. I saw this the other day on television. They put a whole bunch of migrants into a Panamanian hotel for 2 days, and now they're shipping them to a Panamanian jungle where they built internment camps with tents. And they're doing the same thing now in Guantanamo Bay, though this is now so controversial. I think even Pete Hegseth went to Guantanamo in order to check out the substandard tent facilities that they're building there. How do you interpret this as a statement on immigration? And do you think it's more about cruelty as policy or political posturing?
Well, I think it's both, but you took the words right out of my mouth. I think the cruelty is the point. It's not just a bug, it's a feature. But I also think it goes back to what you said, Michael, which was, I think was very insightful of you, and that is having a plan. And so if you're going to, much as, what's been happening with the government, if you're going to take away certain agencies and jobs and all that, you should have a plan of something to replace it with, or to make sure that you are actually doing it properly. I think it's the same thing with all these mass deportations. They have this number. They have a number in mind. As I said, they know the cost of the number of everything, but the value of nothing. So they have their idea of what they want to do. And so they're now trying to make the actual realization of these things fit the political dogma and narrative that they had said on the campaign trail. We're going to deport this many people. That's easy to say when you're running for something, but then when you actually get into office, in order to do that, you have to be able to, where are you going to send them? How are you going to transport them? Where are you going to house them? Who's going to pay for that? Are we going to end up spending more money by housing them in these facilities? And then how valuable is it to us for America to be seen as cruel, that we're putting people in substandard conditions? All of those things you need to think about before you're doing it. And I don't think it was very well thought out. And now we're suffering the consequences. The unfortunate thing is that these are human beings, whether, depending on, no matter how they got here. Some of them are bad people, right? Some of them are not so bad. Some are people who have been caught up in this and they're actually American citizens. And we have to remember, migrants aren't really breaking the law because they're coming here. It's the way they're doing it is legal. And even people who are coming in and they're applying for asylum, declaring asylum, that is not illegal to do in the United States. So I think that it wasn't thought out. I think the cruelty is the point. And I think it's, in a way it's going to backfire. But I will say that people are, I think, positive, or at least they think they are, about getting a handle on immigration or illegal or undocumented immigrants in this country. I don't think that you'll find many people who are against it. I just don't think that most people believe in the way that is being done. The outcome is just as important as the process.
Right. So there's 2 points here. The first one is these migrants that are being deported. And if we take the total number that they want to deport, 10 million, right, what most people don't realize, specifically the MAGA group, is that they actually pay taxes. And it comes out to, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of taxes that the United States government will not receive because of these deportations. But when you do speak to MAGA and you start to say to them things like that, we don't care. And they take and they play the cruelty card. They want to be cruel. Why? Because they think it will prevent people from coming to the country. Why in the world would you go to a country where it's deemed illegal for you to come through? And it is illegal. I won't argue that coming into the country and staying or sneaking into the country is illegal. But imagine now you're going to be deported when you are caught and sent to an internment camp in Guantanamo Bay or in a Panamanian jungle with your spouse, potentially children.
But they're only sending certain kind of people there, Michael. They're only sending certain kind of people. They're only sending the people that they feel that they can manipulate and control that way and that they can treat that way. And that's the people coming across the southern border, the bad brown people. But the people who come over, the H-1B visa folks, or the people who, the brown folks or Europeans, not so brown folks, who come over on airplanes and overstay their visa, they're not deporting them in that cruel way, rounding them up, because they are not the bad brown people coming across the southern border. Do you know what I'm saying?
I sure do, and I think my listeners do as well. Now, meanwhile, since we're talking about craziness going on in this administration, I really want to get your perspectives on this as somebody who has been involved in media for so long. You may have seen the Associated Press made a motion to reinstate its press credentials for briefings at the White House, in the Oval Office, Air Force One, and the briefing room. And they were recently denied by the judge. And this has been hailed now as a Trump victory, that it's a victory for Trump's approach to limiting press access. What do you, D. Lemonade, say about this power dynamic between the press and the executive branch? And how do you see it influencing future administrations' relationships with the media?
Oof. You cut out a little bit. Give me the second part of that question again.
How do you think that it deals with the future administration's dealings with media?
Well, I think future administrations are probably going to be, hopefully they will believe in democracy, in the rule of law, and in the Constitution more than this administration. What this administration is doing now is I believe it's really un-American, and it shows a lack of respect for the very First Amendment of the Constitution, which includes freedom of the press. I think the Associated Press is well within its rights, within the bounds of journalism, to be able to decide what sort of standards that they have for naming bodies of water institutions, or whatever it is. They should be able to do what they want. Every single media organization and every single business, as a matter of fact, has a style book, what they call a style book. This is how we do it at CNN. This is how we do it at the Associated Press. This is how we do it at NBC. And just to show you, look, where you have up on the screen, Michael Cohen, Mea Culpa. That is part of the style book of Michael Cohen's podcast, or your show here. And so I think that the Associated Press is well within its rights. Donald Trump just doesn't get to come in and say, okay, now I'm going to name Nicaragua, Portugal. You can't do that. And so I think that the media, the press, especially conservative press, should stand up for the Associated Press, because when something similar, not exactly the same thing, happened during the Obama administration to a Fox News reporter, every single pretty much news organization, right and left, stood up for that reporter. I think it was James Rosen of Fox News, and said, this is wrong. This should not happen. We stand behind our colleague. I have not heard a peep from conservative media or Fox News about the injustice that has been dealt to the Associated Press. So I think this administration is trying to strong arm the media and pressure them into reporting favorably when that is not the media's job. The media's job is to report, to hold truth to power, and to do it without fear or favor. And it is part of the fourth estate, and it should be allowed to do that. My last point, and I think the most important point, is this administration, starting at the top, has the distorted and backwards idea that the American people work for them, that they are the boss of the American people, and that they are the boss of the media, when it in actuality is the other way around. They are public servants, and they work
Mm-hmm.
for the American people, and they work for the media. And the media is actually doing a service by being a conduit between the administration, the government, and the people. And someone needs to tell that press secretary and Donald Trump and everyone in the communications department that, hey, listen, you need to treat us with respect, because we don't work for you. We work for the American people, and you work for the American people as well. So show us some respect. Do follow-up questions, allow our follow-up questions, and stop treating us as if we are lowly employees. We're not going to stand for it.
Yeah, there's so many issues that we could pull aside here. You may remember during the campaign, and I tried to get this through to first Joe Biden's campaign people, who I think sucked, and then Kamala Harris's people that were equally lousy in terms of messaging. Let me be very clear about something. When it comes to what Trump is doing now with media, this is not brand new. It is not brand new. He did it once before. In his first administration, Jim Acosta was banned from the briefing room from the White House. Yep. So was Brian Karem. They had to sue in order to get their credentials back. Why? As you said, Trump didn't like the way they were reporting. What if tomorrow he turns around and he decides he's going to sign an executive order? I don't like the name of New Mexico anymore.
Right.
Quite frankly, I want to name it New America. I can do whatever I want. Where's my Sharpie? Someone get me a Sharpie and a Coke. Get me Diet Coke, right? I mean, that's what you're talking about here. That with executive order and his signature from a Sharpie, that he could change a name. And if you don't like the name, or if you don't continue to use that name as he wants it, now you are ousted. And when you start listening to the press secretary and you start listening to others talk about how this is a win, I don't see how this is a win for the American people to have your voice stifled, and instead they gave that pass for the Associated Press to Newsmax, to OAN, another one to a different Fox subsidiary, and so on. And I just think basically something I had called out a long time ago, you're going to start to see state-run media, which is, I believe, is what Fox, Newsmax, and OAN is. They're state-run media, no different than in Russia. That media station is called Pravda, which means in Russian truth. All right? There, unfortunately, is no truth there. But I'll tell you a bigger problem that I see, D. Lemon. Public trust in government. It is at an all-time low, even as Trump consistently attacks these government institutions, claiming he's doing it on behalf of the American people to restore trust. His actions, coupled with his focus on dismantling agencies, you know what they're really doing? They're fueling a growing mistrust of all of our public institutions. My question to you is then, how do you think this climate is impacting the average American's perception of the federal government? And what do you think of the long-term consequences?
I don't think it's impacting in the way that the Trump folks think. When it's not hitting, when they say this hits different, it's not hitting in the way that they thought or they think it's going to hit, or they thought it would. I think that they're being naive about it, because if you look, Michael, around the country at these town halls, you see these politicians going back to their constituents, and they're getting an earful. And there are protests. People are being arrested at these town halls because they want to know why people who are non-elected people, why are they in control of our government? Why are they deciding which agencies should stay or go? Why are they deciding what government employees should stay or go? And they also want to know about why are you all of a sudden, we supported Ukraine for the past 3 years. Why are we suddenly flipping the script? So I don't think that it's going over the way that they think it's going over in America. And I think if they continue onto this path, I don't know if it's going to be as drastic as James Carville said, where he said this government's going to fail in 30 days or so. But I do think it's going to be a rude awakening for MAGA and the Trump administration when their own people start to revolt. This may be the time when Donald Trump may get wounded. Where he can wound someone, meaning the country, on Fifth Avenue, and then he's going to start to lose some supporters.
Yeah. So, D. Lemonade, I have two last questions for you. The second to last is the relationship, the way I see it, between Elon Musk and Trump seems to be unraveling. I mean, especially following the recent DOGE-related controversies. Trump's administration recently instructed federal workers to disregard emails from Musk detailing 5 actions that they've taken that specific week, with threats of job loss if in fact that they don't comply by Monday. Now, given Musk's substantial influence on government and public discourse, do you see this as an abuse of power, or do you think it's reflective of a larger trend toward corporate control over government operations?
Larger trend of corporate control over government organizations. I see it's both. Yeah. Government operations. Yeah, I actually see it as both. I think it is an abuse of power, but I think it's an abuse of power by Donald Trump.
Every now and then, we're reminded of those many healthy resolutions that we've made over the years, like to lose weight, to exercise more, to eat better. But a goal without a plan, well, it's a plan that's destined to fail. Prolon's 5-day program, it gives you the tools to put your health goals into action with a science-backed plan that makes it easy to stay focused and to achieve real results. Prolon's fasting mimicking diet, well, it's a revolutionary plant-based nutrition program that nourishes the body while making cells believe that they're fasting. Researched and developed for decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by leading U.S. medical centers, Prolon helps support healthy blood sugar, enhanced skin appearance, fat loss, and improved energy and focus post-fast. Now, it all starts with their 5-day program. Snacks, soups, and beverages, all designed to keep your body in a fasting state. No guesswork and no planning required. 3 consecutive cycles of Prolon have been shown to reduce your biological age score by an average of, get a load of this, 2.5 years. And your waist circumference, by 1.5 inches. Prolon is fasting with food. That's right. It's fasting, but with food. It all starts with Prolon's 5-day program. Again, snacks, soups, beverages, all designed to make your body think that it's fasting. So let me be clear. I did the 5-day program and I feel much better. Prolon, really, it's not like any other diet that I've tried. Because you know why? It's not a diet. It's truly science. I mean, it was convenient. They sent me everything that I needed all in one box. To help you kickstart a health plan that truly works, Prolon is offering Mea Culpa with Michael Cohen listeners 15% off. You hear that? 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day nutrition program. So go now and visit prolonlife.com/mea culpa. That's PROLONLIFE.com/mea culpa to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. That's prolonlife.com/mea culpa. Go there now.
Donald Trump gets to decide if there is even a DOGE, right? That is an organization which is supposed to be a blue ribbon panel, which is, not connected to the government, but it's just an odd, whatever the setup is odd. So I see it as, yes, an abuse of power that has been allowed and facilitated by Donald Trump. And then the rest, of course, on top of that would be an abuse of power. Do I think it is corporate influence? Yeah, there's corporate influence. And we always talk about corporate money in elections and government. And yeah, there's a lot of corporate influence, and even more so now. Michael, look at the people who contributed to his campaign. Look at the people who were surrounding him during the inauguration. It's all corporate overlords and billionaires. And what they realize is that Donald Trump is easily manipulated. He's manipulable. All you have to do is like him or go along with something that he says or does, and he will do whatever you want, right? And so they don't want their government, their contracts and their business being influenced or are stopped or regulated by the government. And they realize if they cozy up to Donald Trump or they donate to the campaign, then he will allow them to continue to line their pockets and make profits, more money. And the billionaires and the millionaires and the billionaires and the corporate overlords get richer. And then the poor people just continue to get poor and remain under the control of government and the rich folks.
See, I don't see it exactly like that. I don't see it where they're able to get what they want out of Trump. It's more like they think that they can get out of him. Again, he's incredibly transactional. If there's not a legitimate benefit to him, see, here's the danger of a guy like an Elon Musk. We'll refer to him as Dr. Evil for a brief moment. Why? And this is what I keep trying to say to the Democratic Party, to the new leader, what's his name, Ken Martin. Here's what I say to him. Stop with the horse shit and the bullshit running around the country saying, okay, look, we need to raise a lot of money. We need to start doing ads. We need to start attacking, some of the things that Trump is doing and putting it out there, opening up offices here and there. That's the old playbook, and it no longer works. It doesn't work for Democrats, and it will never work again. Why? Because I remember when I was around Mitt Romney, even though I've been a Democrat my entire life. I was around Romney when Spencer Zwick, who was his campaign manager, announced that they just reached $1 billion raised for the campaign. And everybody was like, holy shit, $1 billion. Come on. Now it's every campaign presidential campaign exceeds $1 billion. Here's the problem. That $1 billion came from an entire party, all of America. Today, Elon Musk could write that check and not think twice about it. He could write the check for $1 billion, fund the whole fucking thing himself. No amount of money that Democrats raise can outshine what these 5 billionaires that were sitting in row number 2 behind the president, where their net worth exceeds $1.3 trillion. Bezos, Zuckerberg, Musk, Ike Perlmutter, whatever it might be, that whole group. There's no amount of money that Democrats can raise that will do anything to stop this Republican money-making machine. So what do you need to do? You need to grassroots the shit out of this. You got to go into the communities, people like yourself who have name recognition, appearance recognition. You got to go out there, and we have to start holding their hands and explaining to them in simplistic terms, not crazy policy shit, simplistic terms, what needs to be done, because you are putting yourself in jeopardy by following this Trump train right off the cliff. That's the only way. You got to grassroots this. And then when you ultimately succeed, then you undo the damage, or try to undo the damage that's been done. That's the only way that I see taking back the White House. We do, however, have an option, 2026, where if things continue to go bad, again, people like yourself going into the communities, people like myself going and speaking to these town halls where it's exhausting, but it needs to be done. That, to me, is the only way to turn this thing around.
Yeah. Look, what I think you're saying is that we all, and I say this all the time on the Don Lemon Show on YouTube. I say this, shameless plug.
By the way, that was my final question. I want to know exactly what you're up to and what you're doing, because my listeners like you.
Thank you.
Even though you're a nasty guy, tell you, Mr. Lemonade, you're a nasty, nasty guy. But my guy, my former guy, who I used to care about, he likes you.
The dumbest man on television I've been, but he is actually the dumbest man on television. But let me just say, I believe that I think that you're right. For the most part, I think that we all have to be willing to sacrifice something. And I do know, I hate to sort of discount money. It would be great if you could have some of the millionaires and billionaires in your corner if you're a Democrat, because money does speak volumes and it can change things, and money goes a long, long way. It has a lot of influence. But I do think that you have to be willing to sacrifice something. And I think until the American people are willing to do that, then nothing's going to change. We're going to continue on with basically what is this not even slide, but, more of a sort of barreling into fascism and authoritarianism.
Yep. So now my final question, which you already know what it is. I gave you an advanced test question. What's going on in the life of D Lemonade?
Well, I am enjoying the hell out of my life. I am free. I'm emancipated. I can say and do things that I wasn't able to do in corporate media. Because you can't respond, right? You're above that. You can't do that, and you're just going to give it more fuel. And now, sometimes when a troll hits out at me, I hit right back at him. But I am doing the Don Lemon Show on YouTube, and we stream it on all platforms, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, and then it's on Apple, iHeart, and Spotify, right? And so that is a Don Lemon Show. We are growing by leaps and bounds with subscribers, especially after this crazy administration. And I think people want resistance. And I don't mean want resistance just for the sake of resisting, because they understand and they realize the bullshit that's happening in this country. They realize that the tyranny that is being foisted upon the people of America. And they see the injustices, and they want people to fight back, and they want authenticity, and they don't want it filtered through a corporate lens or through a corporate filter. And so here I am, as you know who said, I am the chosen one.
Yes, that was Moses when he was talking to my people.
Yeah, and so I think people have chosen independent media, as you know. The Midas Touch is crushing it.
The
number one social thing, and I think we are taking their lead, and we're drafting off of them, because I love Ben Meisalis and the guys over there, and I think this is going to be a banner time for independent media, especially independent media that is centrist, center right, center left, progressive, because we've got the crazies on the right, we've got the conspiracy theorists, we've got the people who don't have to abide by facts or any of those things. Those people have already made their fortune and are making their fortune in the streaming business. Yep. And now it's time for us. And I think that this last election has opened up an opportunity, and there is a way that is being made for independent media, because people are tired of corporate media right now. They just don't trust it.
Amen to that. My buddy D Lemonade, you say hi to Tim for me. Miss you, my friend. Hope to see you very, very soon. You guys still owe me that drink, but that's besides the point. Look forward to seeing you soon, my friend. And anything that you need from me, I'm always there for you.
Well, thank you very much. We love you guys, and say hi to your family. And anytime you're ready for that drink, I'm done with mine now. Actually, you thought it was scotch, but it was cream soda. I found it in the store. I found a diet version, and so that's it. But you take care of yourself. I'm very proud of you, and continued success, okay?
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.